So the backdrop to the story of Abraham and Isaac is that Abraham's wife, Sarah, was unable to have children naturally. And so God intervened due to Abraham's piety and granted them a child. Lucifer believed that Abraham never showed the gratitude to be worthy of this child, and therefore challenged God that Abraham only loved God because of his child, and if he were to threaten Abraham's child, that Abraham would turn his back on him. So then we have Abraham, God accepting Lucifer's challenge, which is interesting because Lucifer, or the adversary of the story, is actually a good guy. They were conspiring together to get Abraham and Isaac to complete their souls by exhibiting alternative energies. I'll get there in a minute. So Abraham is asked by God to bring his child to the top of the mountain and sacrifice him. So it's a little misleading here because Isaac was 37 at the time and a willing participant in this sacrifice. Binding is probably a more appropriate terminology than sacrifice, but the important thing is that Abraham represented feminine principle. That is, he was very generous and receptive. He built his house on a popular road to receive wayfaring travelers and shelter them, clothe them, feed them, help them get back on their feet and reach their destination of pilgrimage. Whereas Isaac was a more masculine principle, and he was politicking and interested in the happenings of the external world. Excuse me. He was more judgmental, and not necessarily in the colloquial sense that we use it, but making judgments. This or that, having to do with the external world. So, and they knew nothing of the alternative energy. So Abraham knew little to nothing of judgment, and Isaac knew little or nothing of generosity. Not that he wasn't generous, but that how to receive, how to listen. And this is greatly illustrated in the 10-point Sephirot, the Kabbalistic tree of life, which you probably won't be able to read, but you can look it up. So here we have Hesed, which is Abraham, represented by Abraham, the generous, receptive principle. And over here you have, I'm trying to find my finger, you have judgment, severity, which is represented by Isaac. Now, when they're on top of the mountain, Abraham has a vision of Jacob, who is Isaac's son, who isn't even born at the time. But Jacob represents Tiferet, which is balance, synthesis, as you can see here, and beauty being a synthesis. Okay, and so getting to the meat of the story, just as Abraham is about to sacrifice his child, whom he loves, an angel steps in and says, Abraham, Abraham, you don't have to do this. And the reason they didn't have to do it is because by sheer willingness to exhibit the alternative energy, they completed their souls, broke the cycle of rebirth, and joined the heroes in the stars, or heaven, or however you want to interpret that. And so the significance of the angel saying Abraham, Abraham twice is that he was saying, the angel was saying goodbye to the old Abraham and hello to the new Abraham, almost as a born again motif. So, in doing in exhibiting the alternative energy, we regain wholeness, um, wholeness from which we came. And so we were born into division, born into form, and all that is born into form is destined to die, and symbolized by Kronos or Saturn. But uh, they found union in the wholeness that of their willingness alone, which is a great um, which is a great optimistic um, sign for us, because um, we often say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but our intentions, if sincere and genuine, are heard and heard by the universe, and so we can still become whole, even though our reality doesn't play out the way that we would like it to or intend it to. Um, and that's pretty much the story. But I think that's a little side note here about the feminine masculine duality is that it is secondary. It's secondary because anytime you are have a binary or diametrically opposing forces, you are already in a point of division from that wholeness. And so in the Kybalion, the Hermetic doctrine, the first principle is everything is mind. And then the second one is the principle of correspondence, which is the as above is so below, as within and also without, yin yang, masculine feminine, light dark, etc., etc., etc. And so when we add to our self, our nature, to include the alternative energy, it isn't a problem of addition. It isn't. We're not actually adding anything. We're just kind of acquiescing um, an alternative feature to ourself by taking it from somewhere else. So we go from wholeness into duality and the infinite division that duality brings, which is why Socrates spit on the ground every time he heard the number two. So again, it's not an addition. It's a division. So you have one, and then you divide it into half, and so you have two halves, both incomplete, both requiring the other in order to regain wholeness. And instead of doing that, we infinitely divide it, and that's why there's so much confusion, neurosis, etc. In the world, and we just become menaces to ourselves and everyone else in our society. So that wasn't the most optimistic note, but I think you are capable of taking away the optimistic note of that. That if we do find, what do we do with our nature, right? Do we continue on in our nature, or do we exhibit the alternative energy? The motif here, or the lesson here, is that we bring in to ourselves what we don't already have. Once you're good at pool, put it down. Pick up another game. If you're when my children get old enough to tell me that they're bored, I'm going to tell them find something they're not good and get good at it, right? And then do something else. All right. So this video is long enough, and I will hopefully see you soon.